Hello, my name is Anna. I know how frustrating it can be to learn English and worry about making mistakes. I've been there, feeling nervous whenever I had to speak in front of people or understand a fast conversation. But guess what? Today, I'm here to help you feel more confident and discover that learning English can be enjoyable. In this video, you will learn English by following a simple, fun story about how I navigated a busy day in New York City. If you want to boost your listening skills, practice your pronunciation, and learn new words, you've come to the right place. Get ready to explore the city with me. Before we jump in, please make sure to turn on the subtitles if you need them. Also, I encourage you to repeat the key expressions I'll highlight throughout the story. By speaking them out loud, you will improve your fluency and get used to the natural rhythm of English. Now, let's embark on this journey together. Feel free to pause, rewind, or leave comments if something isn't clear. Remember, practice is the key to success, and every little step counts. I'm excited to share my personal experiences with you, and I hope you'll find inspiration in each moment of this adventure. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Gradually, you will truly gain confidence and see that learning English doesn't have to be intimidating. Together, we'll turn everyday moments into valuable practice opportunities, so keep an open mind and a positive attitude. Let's dive in, my friend. Stepping onto the bustling streets of New York City, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. Traffic hummed all around me, and tall buildings stood like silent guardians of infinite possibilities. The sun was shining bright on this particular morning, reflecting off windows and highlighting the unending stream of people rushing to their destinations. With my heart beating faster than usual, I tried to focus on one goal: staying calm for my upcoming job interview. Little did I know that practicing English in everyday situations would prove to be a great way to ease my nerves. I wanted to build my confidence, so I made a plan to challenge myself by engaging in small conversations along the way. This might sound trivial, but for me, every greeting or quick chat was an opportunity to overcome my fears. As I walked along a row of coffee shops, I spotted a quaint cafe with a welcoming neon sign. Eager to put my plan into motion, I decided to go inside for a warm drink. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee immediately soothed my senses. People around me were speaking in lively tones, and their words seemed to dance in the air. Nervous yet determined, I approached the barista. "Good morning," I said with a smile. "Could I have a cappuccino, please?" "Absolutely," the barista responded. "Would you like any flavor syrup added?" I paused for a moment, recalling different synonyms for sweet or rich flavors. "I'll take vanilla, please," I finally answered. "And that's all for now, thank you." Hearing my own words in English felt empowering. Though my accent still lingered, I realized that clarity mattered more than perfection. The barista handed me my drink with a friendly nod, and I found a cozy spot near the window. My cappuccino tasted incredible, but more importantly, I felt proud of taking that small step. As I sat there, I rehearsed phrases I might use during my interview. Words like strengths, experience, and opportunities came to mind. I whispered them quietly under my breath, linking them to each sip of coffee. My notepad lay open on the table, filled with short notes and key vocabulary. Little by little, my nervousness began to melt away, replaced by a sense of determined optimism. With new energy, I left the cafe and continued walking toward the towering office building where my interview would be held. The streets thrived with life, from street performers playing lively tunes to tourists snapping photos of iconic skyscrapers. Surrounding me was the melodic hum of different accents, reminding me that New York City was a gathering place for people from all over the world. In that moment, I realized that my English journey extended beyond textbooks and classes. This city was my classroom, and each interaction was a chance to learn. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Although a trace of uncertainty remained, excitement fueled my steps. Each moment felt like a lesson in courage, reminding me that confidence comes from action. Encouraged by my triumphs, I walked forward with hope. After leaving the cafe behind, I turned the corner and found myself surrounded by a wave of people heading in every direction. Yellow taxis honked impatiently as they navigated the busy street, and a distant siren cut through the morning air. A part of me still felt nervous about my interview, but another part was excited to see what this day had in store. Life in New York was full of surprises, and I sensed that something unexpected would happen at any moment. About halfway to the office building, I noticed a young man struggling with a pile of cardboard boxes in front of a small convenience store. He was juggling them precariously, attempting to keep them from toppling over. Despite his efforts, the boxes began to slide in different directions, threatening to crash onto the sidewalk. This was my chance, I thought, to practice my English in a real-life situation and help someone in need. I took a deep breath, stepped toward him, and spoke up. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to project confidence. "Can I help you with those boxes? They look quite heavy." He paused, relief evident on his face, and nodded. "Yes, please," he replied. I was supposed to move all these supplies inside, but they're heavier than I expected. Right away, I placed my bag on the ground and balanced a couple of the boxes in my arms. We shuffled carefully toward the open doorway of the store, making sure not to bump into the flow of passersby. Each step felt like a small victory, not just because we were moving the boxes, but also because I was practicing English in a spontaneous context. When we finally set the boxes down, the man let out a relieved sigh. "Thank you so much," he said, wiping a bit of sweat from his forehead. "I really appreciate it." "My name's James." "I'm Anna," I responded, offering a friendly smile. "No problem at all. Are you restocking today?" He nodded. "Yeah, we got a new shipment of drinks and snacks, and the delivery arrived late. I'm in a hurry to set everything up." As he spoke, I tried to focus on the way he formed his words. This was a casual conversation, yet every sentence contained valuable expressions I could learn. "Wow, that sounds stressful," I replied. "Well, I'm glad I could help. By the way, I'm on my way to a job interview, so I'm kind of nervous myself." James gave me a curious look. "Really? Good luck. What kind of position are you applying for?" "It's an administrative role at a publishing company," I explained. "I'm hoping to get more experience and improve my language skills at the same time." His eyes lit up with understanding. "That's awesome. I'm sure you'll do great." "You seem pretty confident, actually." I blushed slightly, amused by his comment. "I'm working on it." Small interactions like this help me build my confidence. Just using English in everyday life. James nodded in agreement. Using it in real conversations is the best way to learn. By the way, if you have any time before or after your interview, feel free to stop by again. We're always happy to have a friendly face around here. The idea of returning made me smile. However, I was also cautious about the ticking clock. "Thanks, James. I really appreciate that. I should probably get going now, but maybe I'll swing by later if I have time." Before I left, I couldn't resist asking for some quick advice. "By the way, do you have any tips for speaking English more fluently during an interview?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Try not to rush your words. Speak clearly and don't be afraid of brief pauses. It shows you're thinking about your answers. Also, remember to smile. People underestimate the power of a warm smile." "Thank you," I said, genuinely grateful. "I'll keep that in mind." Picking up my bag, I waved goodbye and stepped back onto the bustling street. It felt like the city had given me a gift that morning, the chance to help someone, practice my skills, and get a boost of positivity all in one go. I couldn't help but replay James's words in my mind. Don't be afraid of pauses. Perhaps the interview would be easier if I let myself breathe and gather my thoughts, instead of rushing to sound perfect. As I continued along the sidewalk, passing tall glass windows and storefronts, I paused to reflect on how such a small gesture of kindness had turned into an invaluable language lesson. The entire exchange had been quick, yet it brimmed with practical vocabulary and everyday expressions. Words like restocking, delivery, and supplies resonated in my head. These terms were much more likely to stay in my memory now that I had heard them in context. I realized this was the essence of learning English in real life, showing up, taking risks, and allowing each encounter to become a stepping stone. My fear of making mistakes was still there, but it felt a little smaller now. If I could hold a conversation about heavy boxes without a script, then perhaps I was more prepared for the interview than I believed. Suddenly, I glanced down at my watch and noticed the time. The interview was approaching quickly, and I needed to ensure I arrived with a few minutes to spare. With renewed determination, I picked up my pace, weaving through the crowds that seemed even thicker than before. Yet, my steps were lighter, and my thoughts were calmer. I might have only carried a few boxes for a stranger, but in that moment, I felt like I was carrying my confidence on my shoulders as well. I repeated a few key phrases in my mind. Can I help you? Yes, please. Thank you so much. Each phrase reminded me how easy it could be to turn any situation into a learning opportunity. The city was humming around me, and I was ready to face what came next. After assisting James with his boxes, I continued my brisk walk toward the office building, all the while reflecting on the conversation we had. It struck me that those simple phrases, "Can I help you?" and "Yes, please," could be incredibly useful in everyday life, far beyond this single interaction. Since my goal was to improve my English in both formal and informal settings, I realized it would be helpful to dissect the language I had just used. For instance, "Can I help you?" is a polite way to offer assistance. It works perfectly in scenarios where someone is visibly struggling, or even as a greeting in a retail setting. I remembered once visiting a store where the salesperson politely asked, "Can I help you find something?" At the time, I was too shy to respond thoroughly. Now, however, I understood that such moments were golden opportunities to practice English, build vocabulary, and gain confidence. The same expression can be adapted to fit different tones or levels of formality. "May I help you?" for more formal situations, or even "Need a hand?" among friends. Another phrase from that encounter was, "It's too heavy," which James used to describe the boxes. Too means more than necessary or desired, indicating something is excessive. We can apply it in many contexts, like, "It's too cold to go outside," or "This line is taking too long." By noticing these patterns, I saw that each simple exchange added a new layer to my understanding of grammar and usage. When James mentioned restocking or deliveries, I caught myself focusing on those specific words. They hinted at his day-to-day tasks and, more importantly, introduced me to real-world vocabulary. Words like shipment, inventory, and merchandise often appear in workplaces, especially in retail or logistics. The key was to remember them in context. I found that phrases connected to personal experiences were easier to recall later. Reflecting on these insights, I also recognized a few mistakes I might have made along the way. Sometimes I felt pressured to speak quickly, worried that pausing would make me seem uncertain. In truth, taking a short moment to gather my thoughts can lead to clearer communication. Through this experience, I realized how crucial it is to avoid filler words like, and instead embrace brief silences. Pauses convey thoughtfulness and help me enunciate my words more effectively. As I strolled along, I mentally reviewed what I would say if I were asked about my strengths or weaknesses in the upcoming interview. Would I be able to present myself in an organized manner? Could I confidently describe my past experiences without stumbling? I found comfort in remembering that language learners don't need to be flawless speakers. Communication is about connection, not perfection. Expressing my ideas clearly, even if simply, was enough to leave a positive impression. My small interaction with James reminded me that mistakes are part of the learning process. Rather than feeling embarrassed, I decided to treat any slip of the tongue as valuable feedback. Was my pronunciation off? Did I misuse a word? Understanding these issues helps me adjust and gradually refine my skills. Moreover, every time I muster the courage to speak, I become more prepared for the next conversation. To make the most of these insights, I developed a mental checklist for future interactions. Speak politely, use common expressions effectively, pause when necessary, and remember that real-life practice is the best teacher. Whenever I encountered a new word like restocking or supplies, I tried to imagine how I'd incorporate it into a sentence. This mental rehearsal supported my confidence and helped me transition seamlessly between everyday chats and more formal discussions. As I approached the office tower for my interview, I held on to these lessons. My goal wasn't just to land a job. It was to keep growing as an English speaker. I glanced at my watch, noting that I had a few minutes left. Taking a final deep breath, I silently repeated my favorite phrases to calm my nerves. "Don't be afraid of pauses," I reminded myself, echoing James's advice. My path led me to the building's revolving doors, where I prepared to put my language skills to the test in a more official setting. The revolving doors spun in front of me, reflecting my slightly anxious expression. This was the moment I had been preparing for, my job interview at a major publishing company. As I stepped into the sleek lobby, I felt the air conditioning brush against my skin. Rows of polished elevators gleamed ahead, and professional-looking individuals bustled about, clutching folders and bags. Remembering the advice to stay calm and concise, I quietly repeated the phrase, "Speak clearly, take your time." Meanwhile, the thought of practicing these expressions compelled me to engage in a final mini exercise before stepping into the imposing elevator. I paused near a potted plant, inhaled deeply, and whispered, "What are my strongest skills?" Then I answered softly, "I am organized, attentive, and passionate about sharing knowledge." This little rehearsal reminded me that preparing typical interview answers could reduce stress. Whenever I stumbled, I let myself pause, reset, and try again. Confidence often builds when we allow space to breathe. With that, I entered the elevator, pressed the button for the 20th floor, and felt it ascend. Other passengers remained silent, tapping their phones or staring at the glowing floor indicator. I pictured the upcoming conversation, greeting the interviewer, answering questions about my experience, and showcasing my language ability. Each moment was an opportunity to be both honest and clear. Reaching the corridor, I saw elegant glass doors labeled with the company's name. My heart fluttered. I approached the receptionist, who greeted me warmly. After a quick confirmation of my appointment, she directed me to a waiting area decorated with modern art pieces. Soft music played overhead, providing a surprisingly soothing atmosphere. I glanced around the room, noticing a few other candidates. Some looked anxious, flipping through resumes or adjusting their outfits. To calm my nerves, I rehearsed a mental script. "Good morning, I'm Anna. Thank you for meeting with me." I also imagined potential follow-up lines, like describing my relevant skills and background. Just as I started reviewing key phrases, the door opened. "Anna?" a voice called. I stood quickly, feeling my stomach tighten. This was a real test of everything I'd learned, from grammar rules to spontaneous conversation. Courage gathered, I stepped forward, determined to do my best. Inside the interview room, a friendly-looking manager introduced herself as Miss Caldwell and invited me to sit. She asked about my background, prompting me to highlight relevant roles, volunteer work, and unique skills. Speaking steadily, I reminded myself to pause when needed, mindful of James's recommendation. When Ms. Caldwell questioned how I handle tight deadlines, I carefully explained my process, referencing my organizational habits and adaptability. While I stumbled once or twice, I used those pauses to breathe. Each response was a micro-lesson in speaking under pressure, and I sensed that my willingness to communicate openly mattered more than flawless grammar. As the interview wrapped up, Ms. Caldwell smiled. "Thanks for sharing your experiences," she said. "We'll be in touch soon." With a grateful nod, I stood and exited the office. Stepping into the hallway, I felt a surge of relief and quiet pride. Outside, the world felt brighter now. Stepping outside the towering office building, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The warm sunshine greeted my face, and I checked the time on my phone, still buzzing with excitement. Though I had just completed my interview, the final outcome remained uncertain. Yet, what truly mattered was the sense of accomplishment I gained from every English interaction today. Each conversation, whether it was ordering coffee, helping James, or speaking with Miss Caldwell, served as proof that my efforts were paying off. While part of me still felt nervous, I was proud of the progress I had made. Leaving the corporate lobby behind, I decided to walk a few blocks to clear my head. The city continued its rhythmic hustle, with yellow taxis weaving between buses and throngs of pedestrians. My mind wandered back to James and how casually we had chatted about his busy schedule. Without realizing it, I had absorbed new vocabulary and expressions that would stay with me. Little by little, I felt my English shifting from memorized phrases to more natural, spontaneous speech. This realization energized me, inspiring me to keep seeking practical opportunities to communicate. As I passed a lively street market, I paused to admire the fresh flowers and colorful fruit stands. Vendors called out prices, each voice overlapping in a pleasant cacophony. I briefly considered buying some fruit just to strike up another conversation. A wave of confidence surged through me, reminding me that simple chats had real power. I made a mental note to return later, as my day was far from over. After a while, I found a small park bench surrounded by tall trees. I took a seat, replaying the morning in my mind and cherishing its lessons. My anxiety about the interview had diminished, replaced by a growing eagerness to continue improving. While I still had a few lingering questions about my performance, I knew I had given it my best. That sense of inner peace was worth every moment of practice and preparation. Looking around, I noticed other people conversing in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and more. It reminded me that New York City was a tapestry of languages, each creating unique stories. I vowed to keep exploring these linguistic opportunities, whether through friendly encounters, formal events, or online communities. The path to fluency, I realized, was paved with curiosity and courage. Soon, I rose from the bench, feeling refreshed and ready to move on. My phone vibrated with a message from a friend who also studied English, asking about my day. Excited to share my experiences, I typed a quick reply, detailing how I'd overcome my nerves and even helped someone with their boxes. The act of writing made me reflect further on how far I'd come. Before heading home, I set a new goal for myself, to keep practicing at least one new phrase or dialogue each day. Persistence was key, and the joys of small victories were more than enough motivation. Glancing at the towering skyscrapers around me, I felt a surge of hope. New York had become my classroom, where every street corner offered a lesson, and every moment brought me closer to fluency. If you find yourself on a similar journey, remember that each conversation matters. Take a deep breath, speak honestly, and don't fear a few pauses. Keep learning, keep speaking, and never underestimate your own potential. In time, you'll see just how much you're capable of achieving